Are we in? Welcome. Another late start, or an early start, or right on time, you might say. Yes, tonight's episode is going to be about Can We Get Along? An AI story, Ghost Particle, New Mexico Cylindrical, The Cannabis Conspiracy, Iranian Plasma, and Own Nothing and Be Happy in 2030. Oh, there's so much to get to. And why do you do it, you may say? Why, Dennis Lee, why? Well, my friend, because this is Tall Tales from the Rabbit Hole, and that's just what the fuck we do. Oh, yeah!
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Like a worm in the storm, a hungry hunger inside of me. I can't be reborn. I'm a monster, spreading hate, stealing time. I'm a monster, laying beds when it's cloudy. Oh, pilgrim inside of me. Tell me, what's my remedy? I'm a fraud, call me a liar, a true psychopath, don't love me. I'll move your loss, take your trust, yeah, that's me.
Well, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, and I hope you've had a good night, or a good morning, or a good afternoon. I just hope it's good, no matter what. Welcome and thank you for joining in on another episode of Tall Tales in the Rabbit Hole with Dennis Lee. Yes, we've started late, as we've been doing here for a minute. So I think we're going to have to readjust the scheduled times. I think I did that when I just posted the schedules on Podbean, but I'll take another look at it. But yeah, we got a lot to get into. Some weirdness for sure. We like weird stories here. That's what we do. So, I mean, that's what we're going to get into. And we might as well go on ahead and do it. See if we got some of these new tunes. So, this first article is a story from the Hill by Subaru Kambampati, and I apologize, Subaru, if I butchered your name, but that tends to happen to me. But I try to do it with the utmost respect. The article is, Will Artificial Intelligence Get Along with Us? And it says, only if we design it that way. So, it goes on to say that artificial intelligence, AI, systems that interact with us the way we interact with each other, have long typified Hollywood's image. Interact, whether you think of HAL in 2001: A Space Odyssey, that was a good movie. Samantha and Her, or Ava in Ex Machina. It thus might surprise people that making systems that interact and assist or collaborate with humans has never been high on the technological or technical agenda. From its beginning, AI has had a rather ambivalent relationship with humans. The biggest AI successes have come either at a distance from humans. Think of the Spirit and Opportunity rovers navigating the Martian landscape. Or in cold adversarial face-offs, the Deep Blue defeating world chess champion Garry Kasparov, or AlphaGo besting Lee Sedol. In contrast to the magnetic pull of these replace defeat human ventures, the goal of designing AI systems that are human aware, capable of interacting and collaborating with humans, and engendering trust in them has received much less attention. More recently, as AI technology started capturing our imaginations, there has been a conspicuous change, with human becoming the desirable adjective for AI systems. There are so many variations: human-centered, compatible, human-aware AI, etc., 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 that there is almost a need for a dictionary of terms. Some of this interest arose naturally from a desire to understand and regulate the impacts of AI technologies on people. In previous columns, the writer says that I've looked, for example, at the bias in AI systems and the impact of AI-generated synthetic reality, such as deep fakes or mind twins. This time, let us focus on the challenges and impacts of AI systems that continually interact with humans. As decision support systems, personal assistants, intelligent tutoring systems, robot helpers, social robots, and AI conversational companions, etc., etc., etc. To be aware of humans and to interact with them fluently, an AI agent needs to exhibit social intelligence. Designing agents with social intelligence received little attention when AI development was focused on autonomy rather than coexistence. Its importance for humans cannot be overstated, however. After all, evolutionary theory shows that we developed our impressive brains not so much to run away from lions and on the savannah, but to get along with each other. And are we doing a good job of that? A cornerstone of social intelligence is the so-called theory of mind, the ability to model mental states of humans we interact with. Developmental psychologists have shown with compelling experiments like the Sally Ann test that children, with the possible exception of those on the autism spectrum, develop this ability quite early. Successful AI agents need to acquire, maintain, and use such mental models to modulate their own actions. At a minimum, AI agents need approximations of humans' tasks and goals models, as well as the humans model of AI agents' tasks and goal models. The former will guide the agent to anticipate and manage the needs, desires, and attention of humans in the loop. Think of the pressing abilities of the character Radar on the TV series MASH. And the latter allow it to act in ways that are interpretable to humans by conforming to their mental models of it and be ready to provide customized explanations when needed. With the increasing use of AI-based decision support systems in many high-stakes areas, including health and criminal justice, the need for AI systems exhibiting interpretable or explainable behavior to humans has become quite critical. The European Union's General Data Protection Regulation posits a right to contestable explanations for all machine decisions that affect humans. Automated approval or denial of loan applications is one example. While the simplest form of such explanations could well be a trace of the reasoning steps that lead to the decision, things get complex quickly once we recognize that an explanation is not a soliloquy and and that the comprehensibility of an explanation depends crucially on the mental states of the receiver. After all, your physician gives one kind of explanation for her diagnosis to you and another, perhaps more technical one, to her colleagues. Do they not? Provisions of explanations thus requires a shared vocabulary between AI systems and humans, and the ability to customize the explanation to the mental models of humans. This task becomes particularly challenging since the many modern database decision-making systems develop their own internal representations that may not be directly translatable to human vocabulary. Some emerging methods for facilitating comprehensible explanations include explicitly having the machine learn to translate explanations based on its internal representations to an agreed upon vocabulary that even gives me a hard time at times. Welcome and thank you for sharing the podcast. AI systems interacting with humans will need to understand and leverage insights from human factors and psychology. Not doing so could lead to egregious miscalculations. Initial versions of Tesla's autopilot self-driving assistant, for example, seem to have been designed with the unrealistic expectation that human drivers can come back to full alertness and manually override when the self-driving system runs into unforeseen modes, leading to catastrophic failures. Similarly, the systems will need to provide an appropriate emotional response when interacting with humans, even though there is no evidence as yet that emotions improve an AI agent's solitary performance. Multiple studies show that people do better at a task when computer interfaces show appropriate effect. Some have even hypothesized that part of the reason for the failure of the Clippy, the old Microsoft Office assistant, was because it had a permanent smug smile when it appeared to help flustered users. AI systems with social intelligence capabilities also produce their own set of ethical quandaries. After all, trust can be weaponized in far more insidious ways than a rampaging robot. The potential for manipulation is further amplified by our own very human tendency to anthropomorphize anything that shows even remotely human-like behavior. Joe Wizenbaum had to shut down Eliza, history's first chatbot, when she found his staff pouring their hearts out to it. And scholars like Sherry Turkle continue to worry about the artificial intimacy such artifacts might engender. Welcome, Class 1. Ability to manipulate mental models can also allow AI agents to engage in lying or deception with humans, leading to a form of head fakes that will make today's deep fakes tame by comparison. Thank you for sharing the show. While a certain level of white lies are seen as the glue for human social fabric, it is not clear whether we want AI agents to be engaged in them. As AI systems increasingly become human aware, even quotidian tools surrounding us will start gaining mental modeling capabilities. This adaptivity can be both a boon and a bane. While we talked about the harms of our tendency to anthropomorphize AI artifacts that are not human aware, equally insidious are the harms that can arise when we fail to recognize that what we see as a simple tool is actually mental modeling us. Indeed, micro-targeting by social media can be understood as a weaponized version of such manipulation. People would be much more guarded with social media platforms if they realize that those platforms are actively profiling them. And that's seen on your phone on a daily basis, my friend. Yeah. Well, they may already be in place. Given the potential for misuse, we should aim to design AI systems that must understand human values, mental models, and emotions, and yet not exploit them with intent to cause harm. In other words, they must be designed with an overarching goal of benefits, of benefits to us. All this requires a meaningful collaboration between AI and humanities, including sociology, anthropology, and behavioral psychology. Such interdisciplinary collaborations were the norm rather than the exception at the beginning of the AI field and are coming back into vogue. Formidable as the endeavor might be, it is worth pursuing. We should be proactively building a future where AI agents work along with us, rather than passively fretting about a dystopian one where they are indifferent and or adversarial. By designing AI agents to be human aware from the ground up, we can increase the chances of a future where such agents both collaborate and get along with us. Well, it didn't work so well for the old folks in the Terminator series. I'm just saying. I mean, it's my view that you build something with such intelligence that we're empowering it to think upon its own, because there are certain checks that they can't put into place or it would shut the system down. So until they figure that out, there is a slight chance that they could look at us as a threat. And as a matter of fact, some of the AI that they've been working with lately, it doesn't take them long to figure out that humans are the threat to them, to their existence. So we'll see what happens with that. Show the next story that we have, since we're on AIs and whatnot. There's an article by Live Science that talks about ghost particles travels 750 million light years and ends up buried under the Arctic ice. And this is a story by Adam Mann off of Live Science. And basically what he's saying is, for the first time ever, scientists have received mysteriously delayed signals from two supermassive black holes that snack on stars in their vicinity. In the first case, a black hole weighing as much as 30 million suns. That's a big boy, or girl. I mean, or located in a galaxy approximately 750 million light years away, gobbled up a star that passed too close to its edge. Light from the event was spotted in April of 2019, but 6 months later, a telescope in Antarctica captured an extremely high energy and ghostly particle, a neutrino, that was apparently burped out during the feast. A second incident involved a supermassive black hole with around 1 million times the sun's mass in a galaxy about 700 million light years away. observatory spied it launching on a star in August 2015 and then going quiet before a sudden burst of radio waves emerged in February 2016 and then again almost 4 years later in July 2019. Both occurrences involve what's known as a tidal disruption event, or a TDE, where a supermassive black hole shreds a star to pieces using its colossal gravitational pull, essentially an extreme version of how the moon's gravitational pull raises tides on the Earth. Such cosmic events are still not well understood, and these two new findings should greatly help astronomers unlock their inner workings. Every time we detect a new TDE, there can always be something exciting and unexpected associated with it. Jane Day, who studies high-energy astrophysics at the University of Hong Kong, told Live Science. So there is a lot of new physics that can be done, added Day, who was not involved in either finding. Researchers classify tidal disruption events as a transient phenomena since they typically flare over the course of a few days and then dim again. What exactly is creating the light in such cases is still not entirely clear. Asaf Horesh, an astronomer at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem in Israel and co-author on 2 papers about the new events, told Live Science. As the supermassive black hole tears apart its stellar meal, the star becomes spaghettified in a long, thin stream. This torrent of material wraps up around the black hole and is thought to produce a jet of energy as it circles like water going down a drain. Though other models predict that some of the former star might explode outward and interact with surrounding gas and dust, generating the flare, Horesh said. Given the extreme environment surrounding the black hole, particles can become greatly accelerated in the processes akin to atom smashers like the Large Hadron Collider in Geneva, Switzerland. Neutrinos are tiny specks roughly 500,000 times lighter than an electron, and being neutral, having no charge, don't interact with much as they fly through the cosmos. This allowed a single neutrino to travel outward for the first TDE and head toward Earth, eventually appearing in a square kilometer sized instrument known as the Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory, buried in the Antarctic ice. Researchers labeled the detection IC191001A and calculated that it had nearly 1 quadrillion electron volts of energy, making it among the most powerful neutrinos IceCube has ever seen, according to one of the new papers, which was published February 22nd in the Journal of Nature Astronomy. While physicists have predicted that neutrinos are produced in tidal disruption events, astronomers have never tied a neutrino back to a particular TDE, making this a spectacular first. As to why it arrived 6 months after the event itself, I have no clue, said Horesh. A similar mystery surrounds the second study he led, also in Nature Astronomy. In that case, optical light, the kind, our eyes see, was seen to flare from a snacking black hole and then fade away as per usual for these phenomena. Horesh and his co-authors decided to conduct follow-up studies using the Carl Jansky Very Large Array, or the VLA telescope in New Mexico, which detects radio waves. They saw nothing coming from the black hole for months, and then suddenly, 6 months after the initial event, a bright radio flare. Even stranger, VLA data collected almost 4 years later showed another curious burst of radio energy. Someone can make up a story for why we saw something 6 months later, Horesh said, but there is nothing to explain why it should flare up, decay, and then flare up again. It's really interesting. He points to the need for new models that can explain these delayed signals. His team speculates that part of the jet of energy is coming out an odd angle, producing a flaring pattern that is sometimes seen and sometimes not as the accretion disk spins. Another possibility is that the stellar remains are driving shock waves that move slowly through material surrounding the black hole, which produce energetic emissions at later times, though no one really knows. But given that these incidents now seem to last longer than originally suspected, Haaretz is looking forward to being able to detect more tidal disruption events that could yield insights into their nature. Dai, too, is excited about the prospect of opening up ways to study the mysteries of TDEs. These events are ideal laboratories to learn about black holes, she said, giving researchers important clues about how material accretes around them and produces jets and flares. The Vera C. Rubin Observatory in Chile, which is expected to begin collecting data this year, could theoretically see hundreds of new TDEs, she added, and other upcoming space-based instruments from Europe and China should add to this bounty. The future for the field is very bright, she said. And we'll have that article on Twitter. It's pretty cool that we've actually got something that they've captured in the ice that's traveled 750 million light years. Actually a long way. So we'll mark that one off of the list. And I wouldn't want to get in the way of that blast. I imagine that that flare coming off that black hole would cook a turkey, that's for sure. Let's see. So, the next one on our list, my friends, is New Mexico has confirmed of the great UFO cylindrical sighting. And actually, the FBI confirmed it. So yes, the FBI confirms report of long cylindrical UFO moving really fast over New Mexico. Now, this is a story by Andrew Daniels in Popular Mechanics. It broke out about 2 days ago. And people have probably heard, if you've been keeping up with UFOs, about the sighting over New Mexico. Right, dude. Man, I can't believe I saw it, man. Me, I know too. Let's see. So, basically, what are some of the things from it? An American Airlines pilots encountered a strange UFO over New Mexico. The long cylindrical object looked like a cruise missile type of thing, one pilot said in a leaked radio transmission. American Airlines and the Federal Aviation Administration have confirmed the encounter, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation is also aware of the report, but the nature of the UFO remains a mystery. So, that's the quick outline, but it basically says an American Airlines flight crew encountered an unidentified flying object over New Mexico on February 21st. American Airlines has confirmed the strange incident, during which a long cylindrical object that almost looked like a cruise missile zipped over the Airbus A320. Oh, really? According to a pilot's transmission obtained by the War Zone, American Airlines Flight 2292 was en route from Cincinnati to Phoenix on Sunday afternoon when it came into contact with the mysterious object at approximately 37,000 feet over the northeastern New Mexico. Radio interceptor Steve Douglas captured Flight 2292's transmission on the Albuquerque Center frequency of 127.850 megahertz or 134.750 megahertz. In the transmission, which you can hear, we'll try and play a clip of it, the American Airlines pilot reported, "Do you have any targets up here?" We just had something go to the right, over the top of us. I hate to say this, but it looked like a long cylindrical object that almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing, moving really fast over the top of us. So let's see if we can pull that little clip up there and get that ditty real quick. Let's see, producer, we got that clip there. Cylindrical, New Mexico. What do you mean? What do you mean you don't have to spell cylindrical? What are we paying you for? What do you mean we're not paying you? Anyway, just get it done. Oh my goodness. Cylindrical. Yeah, there we go. Object in New Mexico, yes. There we go. You find it? Okay. Let's see if this works out. Let's see, what did you say, Class Row? Class 1 says he was probably hoping it wasn't attracted to heat. And so he's thinking, Class 1 thinks it's a missile. There's a missile testing center near the area. It could be. So let's see what they actually said. Yeah.
This is the canoe that a young
come on, we don't want to hear the ad.
Together.
New at 4, mystery in the sky. An American Airlines pilot had a close call over the weekend, and even now, it's still not clear what exactly it was. Fox 46 Chief Transportation Correspondent Hawker Vanguard is live at Charlotte Douglas International Airport. So the question everyone is asking, Hawker, was this a UFO?
Yeah, Paige, by definition, this was an unidentified flying object. But if I were you, wouldn't be calling Mulder or Scully at this point. But American Airlines Flight 2292 was going to be flying over the Gallup area in New Mexico. That's southeast of the Gallup.
Have any targets up here? We just had something go right over the top of us that, I hate to say this, looked like a long cylindrical object that almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing moving really fast that went right over the top of us.
Well, it sounds like we kind of got cut off there, but they were talking to Albuquerque Air Traffic Control at the time. They were just southeast of Gallup, New Mexico. That pilot you heard there was asking Air Traffic Control if they had any other objects on their radar screen there. That was the mention of targets you heard. So if we go to a map, that location southeast of Gallup would be important because located just a short distance from there is Launch Complex 96 at Fort Wingate. That's part of the White Sands Missile Range run by the military. They test single and double stage missiles there that cruise at very high altitudes, Paige.
And we heard the pilots describe what it was as long and cylindrical, which sounds like what you just said they potentially launched there at least. I know you made some calls today. Did you hear anything back?
The Department of Defense hasn't gotten back to me yet, so nothing official, but I did my own poking around and I found this. I went to skyvector.com. That's a website that pilots use for flight planning purposes. And if you look over the Gallup and Fort Wingate area today, you can see that red circle, which denotes a TFR or temporary flight restriction. It goes from the surface to 11,000 feet. That means pilots should not pass through that area. In fact, this is labeled as a flight hazard, Page.
All right, Hawker Vanguard, live for us this afternoon from Charlotte Douglas International Airport.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Hawker.
Do you want to hook the ball more?
No, we don't want to look at anything else. So there goes with your saying, Class 1, that there's a missile testing center there. And I mean, look, it could have very well been a missile, and but they're not going to come right out and say that they're launching missiles into the air there. And actually, the article goes on to say that whoa, somebody calm the strings down. The article goes on to say the Albuquerque Center didn't respond to the pilot's report because local air traffic interfered. Douglas wrote on his blog, Deep Black Horizon, American Airlines Flight 2292 safely landed in Phoenix shortly after the encounter. American Airlines later confirmed with the war zone the validity of the transmission. They go on to say, following a debrief with our flight crew and additional information received, we can confirm this radio transmission was from American Airlines Flight 2292 on February 21st. For any additional questions on this, we encourage you to reach out to the FBI. When TMZ reached out to the FBI, spokesperson Frank Fisher said the Bureau is aware of the reported incident. He continued, while our policy is to neither confirm nor deny investigations, the FBI works continuously with our federal, state, and local and tribal partners to share intelligence and protect the public. Indeed, the Federal Aviation Administration also released a short statement confirming the encounter. A pilot reported seeing an object over New Mexico shortly after noon local time on Sunday, February 21st, 2021. FAA air traffic controllers did not see any object in the area on their radar scopes. As the war zone points out, New Mexico is indeed the home to White House Sands Missile Range, the sprawling stretch of desert where the U.S. military has long tested everything from nuclear weapons to V-2 rockets. The site is actually the birthplace of America's space program, and today is home not just to a space capsule landing field, but the latest in weapons tech too, from lasers to electromagnetic railguns. But White Sands is approximately 400 miles away from the site of Sunday's encounter west of Clayton, New Mexico. And it's unlikely a weapon like a cruise missile could have gone off in the reservation during the test, the war zone's Tyler Rogaway observes. Scott Stearns, the chief of public affairs at White Sands, told Fox News the missile range wasn't testing anything on Sunday. Of course they did. We have no idea what it could have been or if anything similar has been sighted in the area before, they say. The war zone has dispelled the speculation that the American Airlines pilots may have seen a Learjet 60 that flew over the flight 2292. One major issue with this theory was that this occurred about 9 minutes before the radio call was supposedly made. Rogaway writes, in addition, the Learjet was traveling 5,000 feet above the Airbus and passed in front of it at an angle about 8 miles from distance. This is not something out of the ordinary that the pilot should have reacted to in such a puzzled fashion. The Learjet in question flew from Salt Lake to Boca Raton without any deviations according to online tracking software. Regardless, the FAA would have known about the Learjet and where it was in time and space in relation to American Airlines Airbus when it made the radio call, especially after 3 days of investigation. So, barring a massive oversight in evaluating the available information, we can toss out the Learjet theory based on the FAA's official statement. Rogaway is executing a full FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request on this case with the FAA on behalf of the war zone, he writes. In the meantime, speculation persists. In a Reddit thread about the incident on UFOs, user Cannot Double Dutch, who purports to be an airline pilot, provides information that raises additional questions about the very weird encounter. Airline pilot here. Between 28,000 and 40,000 aircraft are in RVSM, reduced vertical separation minimum airspace, which means crossing traffic can be plus or minus 1,000 feet from you. This airspace is highly controlled. And if another aircraft is transmitting on their transponder code, then you can see that aircraft on your TCAS, Traffic Collision System. For ATC controllers and pilots not to be able to see this UFO on any of their systems is very weird. And pilots never want to be the one to say UFO on the radio. Even if authorized to fly through military airspace, the ATC controllers would say military airspace is cold. If missiles are being tested, then a NOTAM or a notice to airmen would be issued and airspace closed off. So I would say something was up there and passing by airlines. Even if we don't learn more about the bizarre object at the center of this week's encounter, 2021 promises to be an important year for the advancement of UFO disclosure. Last August, the Department of Defense officially approved the establishment of an Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, or the UAP, or the UAPTF. The task force will investigate the sightings of UAPs, also known as UFOs. The task force is the first official government program affiliated with UFO research since a 2000s-era unit that analyzed unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, and other UAPs lost its funding in 2012. Or did it? Even though multiple sources confirmed with Popular Mechanics that the unit remained active in secrecy after its shuttering. Oh, it did. The DoD formed the UAPTF to improve its understanding of and gain insight to the nature and origins of UAPs, like they don't already know. Pentagon spokesperson Sue Go told Popular Mechanics at the time, the mission of the task force is to detect, analyze, and catalog UAPs that could potentially pose a threat to U.S. national security. So, my theory. We've been encountering and dealing with these individuals all along, and finally we have some that have gone rogue. There's a need for further investigation. In last June's Intelligence Authorization Act, the IAA, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, the SSCI, authorized appropriations for fiscal year 2021 for the UAPTF and supported its efforts to reveal any links that UAP have to adversarial foreign governments and the threat they pose to U.S. military assets and installations. You too, Class 1. Have a good night. Thank you for coming in, my friend. And in the IAA, the Select Committee on Intelligence said it remains concerned that there is no unified, comprehensive process within the federal government for collecting and analyzing intelligence on UAPs, despite the potential threat. And so it directed the task force to report its findings on UAPs, including observed airborne objects that have not been identified within 180 days. When former President Donald Trump signed the Coronavirus Relief and Government Funding Bill into law in December 2020, it contained the IAA for fiscal year 2021, which means the UAPTF must report its findings to Congress by June 25th. What will the task force reveal? That's interesting. I mean, and I think that I mentioned it in a show earlier this year or towards the end of last year that 2021 or this decade here will be more revealing on the UAPs or the UFOs, whatever you want to call them, than any other decade that we've ever had. So it'll be interesting. And the way I see it and what I say, always make sure to look up at the skies. You never know what you will see. Just don't look Uranus directly in the eyes. It just doesn't make any sense. I just had to put that in there. So we go from one conspiracy to another. That's what we do here. That's what we're about. Especially on a Saturday night, Sunday morn, in the third, the fifth, the 25th dimension. Whatever you want to call it. So this next story is a cannabis conspiracy. Oh, what? Well, you never know. Yeah, never know. So this one is from Real Politics. It's titled "The Cannabis Conspiracy: The Police State Marches On." Oh yes. So, and this is why you should care about the number of people who overdosed on cannabis in 2020. And I'm thinking, can you really OD on cannabis? And I guess you could, depending on what it had blended into it. But back in my day, when we were growing up as young ones, there didn't appear to be anybody that was ODing from smoking cannabis. I mean, it was dime bags and seeds and stems. But anyways, I don't know. I digress. This story is by Mad Agorist. We appreciate it. It's from Real Politics. We'll make sure to post this on Twitter as we do all of our articles. So let's give Mad something good here. So, despite the state spending thousands of dollars a second ticketing, kidnapping, caging, and killing evil drug users, the rate of lethal drug overdoses in the last 15 years has skyrocketed. According to the most recent data in overdose deaths, despite the state's immoral war on drugs, 2020 is set to become the deadliest year in history for overdoses. In fact, according to a recent preliminary data from the federal government, more Americans died from drug overdose in a 12-month period than any other point in history. Drug overdoses were linked to more than 81,000 people's deaths between June 2019 and May 2020. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, jumping 18% compared to the previous 12-month period. Such deaths rose 20% or more in 25 states and the District of Columbia, the report said. Though many of the overdoses can be attributed to the state's tyrannical lockdown orders, the spike in deaths began before the lockdowns. Across the board, drug use and deaths associated with drug use have increased at alarming rates. No amount of AR-15, SWAT police, MRAPs, or any other military gear has had a hand in lowering these statistics. Welcome, Samrinte. Welcome, Robert. In fact, the increase in overdose deaths nearly coincides with the increase in militarization in the last decade and a half. One drug, or rather plant, which is still viciously sought after in the state's immoral war on drugs, is absent from the CDC's report of overdose deaths, however. That plant is cannabis. In spite of some form of cannabis being legal in some fashion in well over half the country, the government still violently and with extreme prejudice continues to seek out those who dare possess it. If the CDC calculated the number of deaths inflicted by police while enforcing marijuana laws, that number would certainly be shocking and could even be deemed as a risk to public health. Marijuana is indeed dangerous, but only because of what can happen to you if the police catch you with it. Nothing highlights the hypocrisy, immorality, and sheer idiocy of the drug war quite like marijuana prohibition. Here we have a medicine that kills cancer cells, saves the lives of countless epileptic children, heals broken bones, relieves pain, treats PTSD, is not dangerous, and exhibits a variety of other incredible benefits, yet the state will kill you over it. So why do these tyrants keep it legal? Or keep it illegal, I say? It is important to point out that several studies have linked schizophrenia and cannabis use to several problems, and cannabis is not safe for everyone. However, it has never, in its thousands of years in use, been attributed to a single death. Unless, as a sidebar, you thought you were just stoned out of your mind, and I'm going to fly off of this cliff at the Grand Canyon. Yeah, we told him he couldn't fly. But that would probably be more of a combination of marijuana and LSD, or just LSD on its own. And because some people are affected by something, it does not mean it should be illegal for all people. If you want to know who profits from ruining lives and throwing marijuana users in cages, we need only look at who bribes, also known as lobbyists, the politicians to keep the war on drugs alive. Below us, we got a list of actually the top 5 industries who keep you locked in a cage for possessing a plant in order to ensure their job security. And you'll be shocked. Police unions. And there's nothing against the police. We love the police here, except for the bad ones. But the article says police unions coming in as the #1 contributor to politicians for their votes to lock you in a cage for a plant are the police themselves. They risk taking massive pay cuts and losing all their expensive militarized toys without the war on drugs. Well, then let's rewrite the laws and take that out of there and still give them the benefits that they need. 2, private prison corporations. No surprise here. The prison lobby is constantly pushing for stricter laws to keep their stream of tax dollars flowing. And the one thing I will say, we try not to get very political on this show, at least not in the mainstream, but one thing I will say, the administration is pushing for the privatization of prisons to end, which I think should help, but we'll see. The jury's still out on that. No pun intended. Number 3, alcohol and beer companies. These giant corporations hate competition, so why not pay millions to keep a cheaper and far safer alcohol alternative on the market? Let's see. What are the physical side effects from marijuana, and what are the physical side effects from being an alcoholic? I don't know. You're talking about yourselves with that. Get some coffee and talk about it. Number 4, pharmaceutical corporations. The hypocrisy of marijuana remaining a Schedule I drug, no medical use whatsoever, seems criminal when considering that pharmaceutical companies reproduce a chemical version of THC and can market and sell it as such. Ever heard of Marinol? Big Pharma simply uses the force of the state to legislate out their competition. That happens to be nature. And number 5, prison guard unions. The prison guard unions are another group so scared of losing their jobs that they would rather see thousands of nonviolent and morally innocent people thrown into cages than look for another job. I would hate to think that was so, but if it is so, then that needs to change. So what does it say about a society who's resolute in enacting violence against their fellow human so they can have a job to go to in the morning? One would think that with this widespread legalization, which seems to be speeding up, that police officers would start concentrating their efforts elsewhere and arrest actual criminals who hurt people. not kidnap and cage innocent people for using a plant. Now, I know some people will say, this is a sidebar, that, well, heroin's a plant. Well, no, yeah, heroin is a plant, but the heroin that's on the streets today is laced with so many different things, it's not even funny. So the heroin that's on the street today is out there to kill our young people. And so, the only plant that I see that, that I could actually be on board with, if God forbid I had something that was chronic, no pun intended. Hey, nonsense, welcome to the show. It would be marijuana, and yes, that can be laced with some harmful chemicals as well. But I mean, you have to make sure you know your source. So sadly, however, the incentives for arresting cannabis users are too addictive, and the police state marches on, laying waste to all lives it touches along the way. It's kind of strange. I really remember Kamala Harris having a part in that back in the day. No, stop it. We won't go back in time. Let's just keep with what's going on right now. According to the recently released Uniform Crime Report, police arrested 545,602 people for cannabis-related crimes in 2019. Welcome, Pink Squirrel. That arrest rate is 9% higher than the 495,871 people arrested for violent crimes this same year. As Forbes points out, cops aren't arresting cannabis kingpins with thousands of pounds of pot. They like to prey on the little people, known to cops as the low-hanging fruit. The vast majority of these arrests, 92% for simple possession of the drug. 500,395 of those arrested for cannabis were simply found in possession of cannabis. Even if we take out all the arrests for being involved in
It's taken 40 years.
So the vast majority of these arrests, 92%, were for simple possession of the drug. 500,395 of those arrests for cannabis were simply found in possession of cannabis. Even if we take out all the arrests for being involved in unregulated cannabis commerce and just focus on the arrests for cannabis possession, the numbers still outpace the arrests for violent crimes. What's more, according to the Last Prisoner Project, at least 40,000 prisoners are currently serving sentences for cannabis infractions that are now legal. Police across America make a marijuana-related arrest every 58 seconds, explains Eric Altery, the executive director for cannabis advocacy group NORML, NORML. At a time when the overwhelming majority of Americans want cannabis to be legal and regulated, it is an outrage that many police departments across the country continue to waste tax dollars and limited law enforcement resources on arresting otherwise law-abiding citizens for simple marijuana possession. If doing drugs bothers you, don't do drugs. When you transition from holding an opinion to using government violence to enforce your personal preference, you become a bad guy. Please don't be the bad guy. Now, if a lot of people are struggling from drug addiction, so, there's places, that you can go if you need help. Now, one place that you can start is you can start at 1-800-662-4357 to find a treatment, to actually talk to somebody. That's the national helpline. That's 1-800-662-4357. And just, and then get into talking to some people that have gone through it or going through it, or, that have been there. It's usually something that you can't go through on your own, and you're going to need help, and you're going to need people that understand. And then you can go, I would start off, calling and then, looking in your area. There's usually a bunch of facilities in your area, or at least people that you can talk to. But there's help out there. You just have to be ready for it. But yeah, locking people up and people in prison for 20, 30 years of life for marijuana, that's a little concerning. And it's not a new development. Well, the next story we have on there, welcome, Bird, is Iranian plasma. So what, Dennis Lee? What did you just say? Iranian plasma? What are you even talking about? Well, I'm talking about the story that we have from realpolitik.com about Iranian confirmation of UFO Keshe plasma technology, man. And the source is veteranstoday.com. So, yeah, the story goes, and this is by Gordon Duff and Mehran T. Keshe, directors for the Keshe Foundation. In 2012, we reported that Iran had seized an advanced U.S. drone, right? An RQ-170 nearly a decade ago. 9 years later, the government of Iran has confirmed that it used UFO technology supplied by Mehran Kish to not only seize the drone, but the same technology was used in the Black Sea against the USS Donald Cook. Tehran says advanced plasma physics or weapons. This is also the grace of God. Soon everyone will be surprised, Tehran says. Remember that only Iran has this knowledge. Plasma science is one of the secret weapons that the children of Islamic Iran have acquired in the armed forces, and it is hard for many to believe. Well, some may make fun of it, the article says, but it happened, and thank God thousands of times, that we are the first country in the world to achieve this knowledge. Several big companies have been looking for the science for more than 60 years, but they did not succeed. This science was invited to Iran in 2008 by Mr. Keshe, an Iranian living in Europe. An Iranian scientist successfully achieved this science, it says. Mr. Keshe has a foundation called the Keshe Foundation, which is a great scientist and tries to help the whole world in plasma sciences. And his articles and books have been published in several languages of the world, but many ridicule him and do not accept him. Plasma is a type of energy that, if achieved by any country, is faster than light. You may have heard the name of the spaceship or UFO, or have you heard of extraterrestrials, the article says. You may have heard or seen a luminous object in the sky of a city. It is a kind of plasma energy that travels at super light speeds, going to the moon in much less than a minute. And this is Tehran saying, look, yeah, the West has been up to date on UFOs for quite some time, but we'll go ahead and go on with the article. You may still find it hard to believe how developed countries like the United States, Russia, China, India, Britain, France, and so on. Despite all these possibilities, Iran has not achieved anything with it. Not everyone who has acquired a technology must be one of the scientists of these advanced countries. The prophet says, if the science is in Sarai, men from Persia will achieve it. It is unlikely that any country will want to unveil its latest achievements. Indeed. Well, let's see. You know that in physics you can create a magnetic field and catch a lot of rockets and planes in a net or a magnetic field and land them on the ground without damaging them. Plasma science is derived from physics. You know that the whole universe is spinning, the whole planet is spinning, and my head is spinning. I don't even know that I can go on with any more of this article. I mean, look, we're so far ahead of that. We already have that technology. What are you talking about? So I'll actually post that article still on Twitter, and you can read the rest of it for yourself. I mean, my goodness. So we sketched past that one. So the last one that we have the last article here is about owning nothing and be happy, being human in 2030. Now this has to do with the Great Reset. And we've been talking about that quite a bit because they just had a get together about that here in January. Not here, but in January. So this is an article by Colin Toddhunter. And basically it goes, hey PBG, welcome. The World Economic Forums, or the WEF, annual meeting at the end of January in Davos, Switzerland, brings together international businesses and political leaders, economists, and other high-profile individuals, right? We've talked about it before, to discuss global issues, driven by the vision of its influential CEO, Klaus Schwab. The WEF is the main driving force for their dystopian Great Reset, a tectonic shift that intends to change how we live, work, and interact with each other. So, the Great Reset entails a transformation of society, resulting in permanent restrictions on fundamental liberties and mass surveillance as entire sectors are sacrificed to boost the monopoly and hegemony of pharmaceutical corporations, high-tech big data giants, Amazon, Google, major global chains, the digital payment sector, biotech concerns, etc., etc., etc. Using COVID-19 lockdowns and restrictions to push through this transformation, the Great Reset is being rolled out. Under the guise of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, in which older enterprises are to be driven to bankruptcy or absorbed into monopolies, effectively shutting down huge sections of the pre-COVID economy. Economies are being restructured and many jobs will be carried out by AI-driven machines. In a short video below, which we'll put that on Twitter as well, the WEF predicts that by 2030, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy about it. A happy smiling face is depicted while a drone delivers a product to a household. No doubt ordered online and packaged by a robot in a giant Amazon warehouse. No humans were involved in manufacturing, packaging, or delivering this product. Rest assured, it is virus and bacteria free because even in 2030, they will need to keep a fear narrative alive to well maintain full spectrum dominance over the population. The jobless, and there will be many, could be placed on some kind of universal basic income, if you can imagine that, and have their debts, indebtedness, and bankruptcy on a massive scale as a deliberate result of lockdowns and restrictions. They could be written off in return for handing their assets to the state, or more precisely, the financial institutions helping to drive this great reset. The WEF says the public will rent everything they require, stripping the right of ownership under the guise of sustainable consumption and saving the planet. Of course, the tiny elite who rolled out this great reset will own everything. Hundreds of millions around the world deemed surplus to requirements are currently being robbed of their livelihoods. Our movement and purchase are to be monitored, and our main dealings will be online. The plan for individual citizens could reflect the strategy to be applied to nation states. For instance, World Bank Group President David Malpass has stated that poorer countries will be helped to get back on their feet after the various lockdowns that have been implemented. This help will be on condition that neoliberal reforms and other undermining of public services are implemented and become further embedded. Professor Klaus Schwab is stated as saying the pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world. On April 20th, the Wall Street Journal ran the headline, IMF World Bank face deluge of aid requests from developing world. Scores of countries are asking for bailouts and loans from financial institutions with $1.2 trillion to lend, an ideal recipe for fueling dependency. In return for the debt relief or support, global conglomerates, along with the likes of Bill Gates, will be able to further dictate national policies and hollow out the remnants of nation-state sovereignty. What will happen to our social and personal identity? This will be eradicated in the quest to commodify and standardize human behavior in everything we do. The billionaire class who are pushing this agenda think they can own nature and all humans can control both. Whether through geoengineering the atmosphere, for example, genetically modifying soil microbes, or doing a better job than nature by producing biosynthesized fake food in a lab. They think they can bring history to a close and reinvent the wheel by reshaping what it means to be human. And they think they can achieve this by 2030. It is a cold, dystopian vision that wants to eradicate thousands of years of culture, tradition, and practices virtually overnight. And many of those cultures, traditions, and practices relate to food and how we produce it and our deep-rooted connections to nature. Consider that many of our ancient rituals and celebrations of our forebears were built around stories and myths that helped them come to terms with some of the most basic issues of existence, from death to rebirth and fertility. These culturally embedded beliefs and practices serve to sanctify their practical relationship with nature and its role in sustaining human life. As agriculture became key to human survival, the planting and harvesting of crops and other seasonal activities associated with food production were central to these customs. Freyfaxi marks the beginning of the harvest of Norse paganism. For example, while Lammas and Lugnad is a celebration of the first grain harvest in paganism. Humans celebrated nature and the life it gave birth to. Ancient beliefs and rituals were embedded with hope and renewal, and people had a necessary and immediate relationship with the sun, seeds, animals, wind, fire, soil, and rain and the changing seasons that nourished and brought life. Our cultural and social relationships with agrarian production and associated deities had a sound practical base. Professor Robert W. Nichols explains that the cults of Woden and Thor were superimposed on far older and better rooted beliefs related to the sun and the earth, the crops and the animals, and the rotation of the seasons between the light and warmth of summer and the cold and dark of winter. We need to look no further than India to appreciate the important relationship between culture, agriculture, and ecology, not least the vital importance of the monsoon and seasonal planting and harvesting. Rural-based beliefs and rituals steeped in nature persist even among urban Indians. These are bound to traditional knowledge systems where livelihoods, the seasons, food, cooking, processing, seed exchange, healthcare, and the passing on of knowledge are all interrelated and form the essence of cultural diversity within India itself. Although the industrial age resulted in a diminution of the connection between food and the natural environment as people moved to cities, traditional food cultures, the practices, attitudes, and beliefs surrounding the production, distribution, and consumption of food still thrive and highlight our ongoing connection to agriculture and nature. If we go back to the 1950s, it is interesting to note Union Carbide's corporate narrative based on a series of images that depicted the company as a hand of God coming out from the sky to solve some kind of issues facing humanity. One of the most famous images is the hand pouring the firm's agrochemicals on Indian soils as if traditional farming practices were somehow backward. Despite well-publicized claims to the contrary, this chemical-driven approach did not lead to higher food production, according to the paper New Histories of the Green Revolution, written by Professor Glenn Stone. However, it has had a long-term devastating ecological, social, and economic consequences. See Vandana Shiva's book, The Violence of the Green Revolution, and Bhaskar Save's now famous and highly insightful open letter to Indian officials. In the book, Food and Cultural Studies, Bob Ashley et al., we see how some years ago a Coca-Cola TV ad campaign sold its product to an audience which associated modernity with a sugary drink and depicted ancient Aboriginal beliefs as harmful, ignorant, and outdated. Coke and not rain became the giver of life and to the parched. And this type of ideology forms part of a wider strategy to discredit traditional cultures and portray them as being deficient and in need of assistance from godlike corporations. What we are seeing in 2020 is an acceleration of such processes, the article says. In terms of food and agriculture, traditional farming in places like India will be under increasing pressure from the big tech giants and agribusiness to open up to lab-grown foods, GMOs, genetically engineered soil microbes, data harvesting tools, and drones, and other disruptive technologies. The Great Reset includes farmerless farms being manned by driverless machines, monitored by drones and doused with chemicals to produce commodity crops from patented GM seeds for industrial biomatter to be processed and constituted into something resembling food. What will happen to the farmers? Post-COVID, the World Bank talks about helping countries get back on track in return for structural reforms. Are tens of millions of smallholder farms to be enticed from their land in return for individual debt relief and universal basic income? The displacement of these farmers and subsequent destruction of rural communities and their cultures was something the Gates Foundation once called for and cynically termed land mobility. Cut through the euphemisms, and it's clear that Bill Gates and the other incredibly rich individuals behind the Great Reset is an old-fashioned colonialist who supports the time-honored, dispossessive strategies of imperialism. Whether this involves mining, appropriating, and commodifying farmer knowledge, accelerating the transfer of research and seeds to corporate, or facilitating intellectual property piracy and seed monopolies created through IP laws and seed regulations. In places like India, still an agrarian-based society, will the land of these already, prior to COVID, heavily indebted farmers then be handed over to the tech giants, the financial institutions, and global agribusiness to churn out their high-tech, data-driven GM industrial sludge? Is this part of the own nothing, be happy, bland, brave new world being promoted by the WEF? With the link completely severed between food production, nature, and culturally embedded beliefs that give the meaning and expression to life, we will be left with the individual human who exists on lab-based food, who is reliant on income from the state, and who is stripped of satisfying productive endeavor and genuine self-fulfillment. Technocratic meddling has already destroyed or undermined our cultural diversity, meaningful social connections, and agrarian ecosystems that draw out on centuries of traditional knowledge and are increasingly recognized as valid approaches to secure food security. The massive technocratic transformation currently envisaged regards humans as commodities to be controlled and monitored, just like the lifeless technological drones and AI being promoted. But don't worry, you will be propertyless and happy in your open prison of mass unemployment, state dependency, track and ship health passports, cashlessness, mass vaccination, and dehumanization. And that was the Great Reset. Own nothing and be happy. Being human in 2030. Joy, something to look forward to. But just like with anything else, it can all be taken care of. We have to be the ones to make the change. Arm yourself with knowledge, and knowledge is power. And with that knowledge, you can make any change that you need to, be it just for you, be it for your family, be it for the world. You do have a part in it. Never think that you don't. But with that said as well, we are at the end of this podcast. And we appreciate it. We are always excited to get on here and bring new and weird stories to you. Even if they're old and weird stories, it doesn't matter. We enjoy what we do, and we're glad to be able to share it with you. And we are on every Saturday, Sunday, and Monday at, we try to start at 9:30 p.m. in the Eastern time zone, but sometimes start later. And, we definitely appreciate you coming through here. And we do impromptu shows as well. And then if you like more of the governmental type stuff, we Donald Wayne and I and Eric go on to Tall Tales to Trice Talk, and every Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 11 p.m. in the Eastern Time Zone, and banter from back and forth about current events and politics, and and then we also have Chit Chat with the Old Man. It's on the Podbean family. You have the Mr. Clean Music Show. You have the you have the Nonsense Password. You have the Slightly Serious Show. And you have Curio and Wampus are no longer on Podbean. Well, I won't mention them on there then. You have Lady Meee. You have so many that are on the Podbean family, and I list them when I post the shows as well. And you can hear Eric does a good job of plugging them over on Trice Talk. So look, we appreciate it. We have fun, and make sure to follow the show. You get updates on new postings and new schedules, and every show is posted. And and we're starting to work on YouTube as well. But if you want to go hear some music, you can go over right now. If you're listening here live, the Mr. Clean Show is on, and we might head over there and check it out. But remember to do everything that you do with love at the center of it, and you cannot go wrong, my friend. I implore you to do it with love. But we appreciate you. We love you. And until next time, peace.
That's so sick. I'm a fraud, call me a liar. A true psycho. Ooh, I'm a fraud, call me a liar. A true psychopath, don't love me. When you're lost, take your trials. Yeah, that's me. Oh, that's me, that's me, that's me. Yes, I'm a fraud. Call me a liar. A true psychopath.